Hi there, I'm B. Welcome to my channel. We are in the 12th episode of the Let's Make a Stealth game. Today we're going to continue with the dialogue system and we're going to finish the system. Let's take a look at the result. As soon as I press play, we will see the dialogue with the animation letter by letter, and the new thing is we can have as many messages as we want, and we will have branches and options for the player. We can use the keys to skip the messages. So as soon as press play, we will see that we have a dialogue between a mysterious NPC and our player. So let's get on with this. So we have the first line of dialogue, which we don't know who it is. I can press E to keep going on the dialogue. And then we have some options that we can select. We can have only 4. I set that as one of my rules. So let's select, I don't know, who are you? Let's go. Well, it's a very simple dialogue, but we can extend this and make it longer. And the good thing about this system is we can use it not only to have dialogues between NPCs, but we can use it for when we are interacting with objects. That will come later on in the next tutorial probably. And the way I made this system is we will have independent dialogues, and so we will use data tables to have one dialogue per element, NPC, or whatever you want. We have to make some changes on the current code and on the widget blueprint. Let me show you first. I have this folder called dialogue, and this is the intro dialogue. This is a data table which is very nice to use because you can put text and data that you can use on your game, and also you can export and import from external, so you can export this to CBS or JSON, and the same, and Unreal will convert that. This data table is based on a struct in C++ that I declare on my defines header, and there is no need to create a C++ class, but this is focused on C++ and it's easy to control what's going on C++. Okay, if I open this, we can see that I have 3 rows. This will be one single dialogue for the intro. If we want to create another one in another point of the game, we will create a new one. And we have for each row a character name. This is that mysterious NPC. The number of lines of dialogue for this. So we have 2, and then when this one finishes, we have options for the player. The options are the text for the option, so as you saw before, we have 2, and then the index, which is the index for the next row of this. So this first answer will correspond with the index 1, so this row, and the other one, this one, will correspond with this one. So depending on what we select, we will have this answer of this answer from the other NPC. So this dialogue system only executes one branch. It's very simple for this type of game. You could extend this for more complex systems. This works, it's simple, effective, and yeah. Next thing I'm gonna show you, because we have to do a few changes on the widget blueprint. We're gonna need those 4 options. These 4, and they are only text block with nothing fancy, and everything is encapsulated in a vertical box, which is a nice way to sort these elements one under the other. Everything keeps the same animation, so when this UI is being animated, it will drag everything together. So I created a few more implementable blueprints to reset these options, to highlight the option, and all of that. Here I have the 3 new blueprint implementable events. I have on reset option, on highlight option, which receive an integer option, and it has to be from 0 to 4, that's important. And finally on set option, which will set a specific option text on one of the options. The way I'm using this, again, because this extends from in-game UI, you can just go through all of them. So event on reset option, all it does is set the text for each option. In order to do this, these options has to be variable, so we need to tick this to see it on the graph. And then, as usual, to use any of these events, you just need to right click event and just type the event. For example, for on reset options, it will give me this one. If it's not here, it will put this node, and then we just need to drag one element, set text, and there is nothing on the text because we are setting that, and then we just need to do the same for the 4 of them. Very simple. The next implementable event that I had is on highlight option, which all it does is just to change the color of the text that we are receiving in option. So first, what I do is just take all of the elements and get the set color and opacity and set it to white, which is the original color, to reset anything. And then I use this switch to change the color to this one using the switch with the selection. So these are the values that are accepted. And that's it. So we're gonna use this when we can select one of the 4 options. We will highlight the one that comes here. All of these will be mostly called from other places, so they are public events. And finally, the last element, the last blueprint implementable event that I have is event on set option, again with a switch, and all I'm doing is just to set the text that I receive here. And the option, again, I only can use 0, 1, 2, 3. Next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna add one more input. For now, let's go project settings, input, and remember we have this interact, which will be used to skip the dialogue, the current dialogue that is being animated, or the line dialogue, and to select the options. And also I need a key up and a key down events with up and down and the D-pad, so we can select the options. We need to hook this up again on the main player controller, so let's check that out. We're gonna need 2 more U function on key up and on key down. As usual, we just need to do the binding. So that's the name of function that is set here. Remember, key up or key down has to be the same. And I'm using this function and this function to, every time we press the up or the down on the controller or on the keyboard, we'll do this function. Let's check this out now. If we go to the on key down, all I'm doing is just call this on select up option and down option. We will implement later on the in-game UI, which remember is that UI that refers to the UI. And the last thing I want to show you, the way I'm gonna test this, because this is the intro dialogue, I have a reference to the dialogue in this main player controller. And here we have our older test to test the UI. Now, instead of all of this, what I'm gonna do is send a reference to the intro dialogue, which is a reference to the data table that I showed you earlier. And I'm calling this initialize dialogue to send the reference. This is another method that we're gonna see just in a few minutes. I also have this, which means this is a very handy function that I discovered recently, which makes the player not move or rotate, or it's just for cinematic mode. And in this case it makes sense because I don't want the player to move around while I'm moving the keys. So this is very useful and very simple to use. If I check that, what it's asking me is okay, I'm in cinematic mode, and here it's gonna ask me see if this is gonna affect the movement and the camera turning. So with true, this means nothing is gonna move around. And finally, this reference is nothing like, it's only an editor, something that I can plug on the editor, and it's a reference to the UI table, which is that intro dialog. If I go to the blueprint now, the blueprint main player controller, the reference is right here. So I have intro dialog, and I have that first intro dialog. And this is how I'm gonna use the dialogues for other places. Maybe I will have a trigger, and then I'll add a field similar to this one. And when the player enters, I will start the dialogue with the same function, with this one. So it's a way to reuse this element over and over again. Okay, the next thing we need to check is the declaration of these elements, this data table is C++. If we take a look at my definition.h, here's where I have my declaration of the data table, that type. And this is important, it has to extend from FTable row base. And this is the dialog, FDialog NPC, and it contains a character name, the amount of lines of dialogue. They are ftext because they can be localized. The other option is strings or fname, but with this you can automatically, Unreal has this amazing system to localize text. So for this it makes sense. For this no, because you're not gonna localize a character name. Next we have another list with message options, which are the options for the player. And this is declared right here, and in this case it's just a blueprint type. It doesn't extend from here. And it has an option text and an answer index, which is basically the row index of this dialog. The names are not great, sorry about that. Let me show you how to create a new one. So we can go to dialog and we can create a right click, miscellaneous, data table, and now we will, Unreal will ask us what do you want to do or what type of data table we want to create. So we just need to find our type, which is dialog NPC. Okay, and we have a new one. So, okay, if we open that, we have nothing, but then we can start creating rows. This row name is automatically, and this is because the way you can find rows in data tables is with these are unique keys. So you can have something like row 1, row 2, row 3. But we're not going to use this because I found a much simple way to go through rows. Then we have the row name. We can do this right here, so we can, okay, let's add 3. Lean 1, and we can do the same. So this is how my system works. And maybe this is the only line that we have for the dialogue, so maybe it's just for an object. Or we can add these options, which is gonna add one. For example, and maybe nothing that right there, or maybe it goes back to the first one, or maybe it goes to the next one. But for that we need to create a new line. So okay, let me show you this again. So thing is, the NPC or whatever we have will give us these 3 lines, and then we have this only option with and then the row index, which will be this one. Okay, the last part of the tutorial is the trickiest one, which is we need to add this functionality to the in-game UI. So let's go to there, and as I told you, the first entry point is this initialize dialog. It is declared right here and is expecting a dialog table. We also have on select up option and on select down option, and they all interact. So remember, these three ones will be called when we press the up key, down key, and this will be the E key or the other one on the controller. For this system, we're gonna need extra variables, which I declare here. We have a current state, because for controlling the states of the dialogue and show the options and let the player interact, we're gonna use a state machine. Very simple. I decided to use an int and put here like the states. And this will be an int to have the index of the selected option from 0 to 4, for 3. This is gonna be the way we go through all the dialogues instead of using the find function that Unreal provides, and I'll show you how to work with this. The message index means in each row, which is the line of dialogue we are at, and this is the row on this dialogue. Again, the name of the variables are not great. Okay. Let's go to initialize dialog. I had to make a few adjustments to this current code, but I'll show you everything so you have everything ready. Initialize dialog. Receive the dialog table. We should put here a null check just in case. I forgot to do that, but okay. So initialize dialog. The first thing we do is the current state to 0. Then we'll set these two elements, the character name and the text. Nothing is happening. And we call on reset option, so we will have empty, all the options empty. Now, this is the important bit. And initialize, we're gonna populate this list with all the rows in the dialog table. This is a way I feel more comfortable using this dialog table. The other reason is find rows, but like this I can just go through indices. And so we use an iterator, auto it, and we get all the rows in the dialog, and we simply do a casting. So we take the value of this pointer, the subpointer, and we cast to FTable NPC, and this is a row, and we add the dialog. So from now on we will use this array to navigate. We will select the first one, and we have a sanity check. If we have more than one row, we can continue. But again, state 0, row index 0, so this is completely unnecessary. We set the name of the character, taking the row index of this dialog and take it the character name, so that will be the symbols that you saw on top of the dialog. And now we go through all the messages, all the line dialogues. We set that to the 0 one, and we call on animation show messages. If you remember, this will do the animation to go from down to top the UI. We have a tiny little wait for this animation, and when this is end, it will go to on timer complete. All we do here is just to clear the timer, very important, and we call animate to start animating letter by letter this current dialog. Let's continue. On animated message, this is similar to the previous version. And what we change is current state will go to 1. This means we're animating, so when the player presses on interact, and we will use this state to skip the current text or that. And nothing new here. We have initial message, we initialize again the text, and we have the delay. This is from the previous video, and it will do the letter by letter with this delay. Calling this on animation timer complete, which I believe is a new function that I created for this. So I rearrange all of these to make it fit this system. Quick recall on animation timer complete will be called until the last letter of this message, which is the first one on the dialogue, is completed. Remember, we use the output message with the append char and the initial message letter by letter. We also do the sound, this sound cue, and we check if it's the last one. If it's not the last one, we go back. So this will be like a loop, but using timers. If it's the last one, we change the status to 2. That means when the player presses interact or the E key, it will do the state to the current state 2, which will be update the message or show the options. Let's move on now to the tricky part, which is interact, because things happens here. We have current state 1 when it's being animated, when the text is completed, and when we have options to select. The first one, this means we can skip the current animation. So we clear the timer and we just basically set the complete message, skipping the animation, and we move on to the next state, which is text complete. Here we have 2 options. One is we have more dialogues, line of dialogues in this row. So what we do is just move on to the next message index and start over with the animation message. So the logic will go back to the animation and we will move on to this state again. If there are no more message index, so to be clear, let's go to here. So we are in this row. This means we have 2 lines, 2 messages. So first we will animate this one, and with this ends, we have another one. So we will do the same thing until we reach this one. And now it's the time to show these options. That's what is happening here. So this is the part that we have more line of dialogues, and here means that we don't have more. And now it's time to move on to the player and the options. So we remove the text and we set the character name as the blue robot, which is our player. And we do a second check. Do we have options to show? Yes. So we reset all of them, no text, and we just simply go through all of them with the current row index and all the options. We use onset option to set all of them. So we can have 1, 2, 3, 4. We initialize the select option and we highlight that one. And the next state, current state. If there is no option, we just completely hide the UI and we finish with the dialogue. Okay, what happens if we are in the options and the player starts to see the 2 options that we saw in the beginning? We are in this state. So now the player can just select 1 or 2 here, using onSelect Up option and onSelect Down option. And all it happens here is just, okay, if we are in state 3, we can move up the selected option or move down, using this as a stop or 0. We will do on highlight option again with this selected option in both cases. So this way we can show that we can select options. So this will happen with we are in the free state, not any other state. Okay, now the player has selected any of the options, is happy, so we just go through here. Now what happened is, we will take the row index corresponding to that option. So we have on the row index the message option, the selected option, which can be 0, 1, 2, 3, and answer index. Okay, we reset again the options, so we clear everything, and we check, are we in the right range for the dialogues? Yes, so this will be our new branch. We reset everything and we start over. If this is out of range for whatever reason, we just hide the message. And that's it. It's not a very complex system, it's easy and it's reusable, which I think is very important when we generate systems like this. Let's review one more time the game. Hey you, that's the first line. We press interact. That's the second line. Now, when we press interact, we will see the options. What? And we can now. So right now we're in state 3. Okay, what? Who are you? Okay, let's select what. We have to get out of here. Okay. And this ends. And at this stage, we should use that set cinematic again. So what we could do is add an event to the dialogue and let the player move again. That will be for the next tutorial. And that's it. That's all for this simple dialogue system. I hope you liked it. So please share, like, subscribe. It helps. See you next time on the next video. Bye!